welcome in everyone to the 7th episode of Craze's Corner. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. We got some news. We got our beard segment that we promised you guys from last week, and we have our 3 must-have fantasy football players that we're taking in every draft this season. So let's get right into the injuries. The first big news is Travis Etienne injury. He's out for the entire season. This is big news for James Robinson. He's going to see a similar role as he did last season. So he's going to be a guy that I'm targeting in the second round, preferably late second round. And then we'll jump into starting quarterbacks. So there has been some teams announcing their starting quarterbacks. We're going to start with Andy Dalton is going to be starting for the Chicago Bears week 1. I think that's probably the best bet. If he plays bad, they can always start Fields. And if he's good, they can ride him until they decide Fields is ready. The Broncos also announced that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be starting this week. Or not this week, but he's going to be starting week 1. They decided him over Drew Lock, because I think it's going to be better for the team. Teddy Bridgewater has a lot around him right now, and with the Broncos' defense being as good as they are, I don't think they need Lock throwing those interceptions that Teddy's going to avoid. And finally, Trevor Lawrence was announced as a starting quarterback. We kind of all knew this was coming, but Urban Meyer was being difficult about it, and he just waited till today to announce it. Okay, let's get into Robbie Anderson's new extension. This is huge for the Carolina Panthers. They got him on a 2-year extension worth $29.5 million. It's going to average around $15 million per year. They were able to add almost $5 million to the cap this year to lessen the cap in the future years because they had the cap space. They did cut Denzel Perryman today to make room for this cap as well. Do you guys think Anderson deserved this extension? Let us know using the Media app. Our show is sponsored by Media, and Media is the only platform that allows you to take your fantasy football league to the next level. I use it for all my leagues, and I highly recommend you guys check it out on the App Store or Google Play. And now the segment everyone's been waiting for. Here are some of our favorite NFL beards. We're going to start off here with Will's favorite beard. Thanks for joining, guys. Will's favorite beard here, Travis Kelce's fresh cut. His tweeted this out last week. This is kind of how we ended our show. Obviously, he shaved his beard, and he kind of looked weird without it, which inspired this next segment of our favorite beards in the NFL. So first off, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Obviously, I think that is the cornerstone of NFL beards. I don't know if you can find a better one. It's tough. He's got that on lock. We got Brett Kiesel. A lot of people forgot about him, but I think he had an amazing beard. He kind of started the whole playoff beard, and he inspired some players to grow beards. I know that for a fact. Jason Kelce. Obviously, he's got a really full beard there. It's not super long, but it's nice. Well, yeah, it's nice and shaped. There's the picture of Matt Stafford that everyone forgets. Matt Stafford can, in fact, grow a beard.
Yeah.
And then you got Eric Weddle.
I like Weddle's.
Yeah.
Weddle's beard
was a real beard, man.
Oh, Weddle looks like he should be in a movie like Lord of the Rings or something with that beard.
Like one of those big ears that he's hanging over his ears, and coming down.
And look at Allen's beard with the Chargers, man. That's not bad. It's not good around. I think it could fill out maybe more in the chin, but on his cheeks, he got that going, man.
Yeah, he does. I mean, doesn't compare to Weddle's beard there. It's unfair to put him up against Weddle, but it's not bad.
See, like Stafford's beard, it's too trimmed for me. Yeah. Like if you're going to trim it and line it up, it needs to be shorter. If you're going to go, then if you're not going to do that, then go long. Go like Weddle's doing on his beard, man. You got to be like, you can't be in that in between stage. It just doesn't. It looks like you're indecisive.
Yeah, I mean, he probably you think he was indecisive. He wasn't sure if he wanted to grow the beard out or if he wanted to cut it, because we all know the beard didn't last very long. So
maybe like anything, Hey, Zach, with anything with the Lions, nothing lasts long.
We got the Browns receivers here. Couple of them, Odell, Landry.
Is this a requirement to play wide receiver for the Browns that you had to have a beard?
Exactly. In the same beard.
Although, hey, let's give Odell some credit though, because he does the two-tone thing with his hair and the beard.
Right.
It looks tight, right? It just is. And Landry's. I like Landry's. It's full, man. There's no anybody's trying to grow a beard, right? The worst thing is those little blotches or spots that it doesn't grow in as full. And Landry looks like he got a full beard, man.
They look almost exactly the same.
Their beards
like
do,
half an inch between Odell's lip and the bottom of his beard, but they look almost the same, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Aaron Rodgers just looks like the dude. He just looks like I just came off the beach. I was really gonna not play this year, and I look like I wasn't gonna play this year. It looks like I was on the beach.
He does. He's got the hair slicked back.
Yeah, man.
I mean, look at that. This picture's from when he reported to camp.
Exactly.
The hair is slicked back and it's long. The sunglasses are out of the 1980s. The beard is somewhere in between. Maybe I'm growing a beard, maybe I'm not. But look, dude, he got the Office teacher on with Dunder Mifflin, right? With Kevin. So, I mean, this whole image of him is I don't give a F about any of this.
That is it. That's what
I'm
kind of like
vacation.
Yes.
Maybe he's still on vacation.
You need me more than I need you. That's how he showed up as. That's what I love about it. You need me more than I need you.
And he's not wrong there. The Packers definitely need him.
From what we've seen from Jordan Love, yes, they do. Beard and all, we'll take you, please.
Let's get right into three players from each of us that we're trying to leave every fantasy football draft with this season. I think this is a great topic for discussion. Obviously, everyone has their guys that they want, and we're here to let you know the guys that we fully believe in based on their current ADP that we think you guys should start targeting and hopefully come away with. I'm going to start off. My first player I'm trying to leave every draft with, he's being drafted as a tight end 3, either beginning of the third, end of the second round currently. Last year he was a tight end 2, and the year before that he was a tight end 4. I'm talking about Darren Waller. I think there's a big drop-off after Waller and Kittle for the tight end 4, and I think having the positional advantage over your opponent, unless they have Travis Kelce, I think that's really going to be a deciding factor in what wins and loses you weeks, especially if you have only one flex spot where you can only start 3 wide receivers or 3 running backs. I think having that tight end that is next level as opposed to tight ends you're going to be facing, because once you get into the 10th round, you're starting to look at for the tight end 10, they're going to have weeks where they don't score anything. Then they're going to have weeks where they score 15 points. So those are going to be kind of guys that will lose you weeks, but can also help you win weeks. But if you get a guy like Darren Waller, he's never going to lose you a week because you know you're going to get those targets, being the number 1 target in Las Vegas. And he's been a monster the past 2 seasons, and I expect it to continue on. I think he'll probably finish higher than George Kittle, who's being drafted in front of him right now, and I would take Darren Waller over George Kittle, even though I'm a huge George Kittle fan. For fantasy-wise, I think Darren Waller is the way to go.
All right. I agree with that. I just am trying to figure out what is your top 4 as far as the tight end position right now. It's definitely Kelce.
Yep. Then Waller.
Kittle.
And then Kittle. And after that, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkins.
Okay, because you were saying huge drop-off. And that's the one thing I keep looking at this, and I mean, I agree with the top 3 that you have. But one of the guys that is probably the most consistent is Mark Andrews. I mean, I look at him. If Lamar's not running, he's usually throwing to Mark Andrews, somewhere like that. So that's another tight end. I've been kind of seeing guys take Hawkinson over Andrews, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. You don't know what that chemistry is yet between Goff and Hawkinson. So I'm like, to me, that's a little bit of a reach.
Oh, we know what the chemistry is between Goff and anybody. It's called an explosion. And so, I mean, it's one of those things when you were in high school chemistry and they said, don't mix those two chemicals. That's Jared Goff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Mark Andrews is definitely a tier down below Darren Waller because he does have the inconsistencies at the quarterback position where Lamar Jackson can run the ball, and that takes away from his value. He's been pretty touchdown dependent in the past, where if he doesn't score a touchdown in the game, you're probably going to be upset with that because the Ravens don't have a high passing volume. And with the addition of Rashad Bateman, Sammy Watkins, the development of Hollywood Brown, I think those guys are going to start to see more targets because the Ravens realize they can't just run the ball and throw it to Mark Andrews.
You know what's interesting to me, though, on the tight end? So I get you with Andrews, Jeff, but his average draft position, according to CBS, is 52, 53. Julio Jones is going at 52, 53. Adam Thielen's going at 52.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
I think we lost Will. But what he was saying is,
talk to about a Vikings player, you just freeze.
Oh, I'm sorry, internet. I'm saying, but hey, Mark Andrews at 52, or Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett.
Yeah,
I don't know. To be honest with you guys, I would probably take one of the wide receivers before I took a tight end at 52.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how you build your team up to that point. If you've gone running back heavy, then obviously the wide receivers are going to be more valuable. If you've done what I like to do and take Darren Waller in the third there, then Mark Andrews isn't even on your board there. And there are great wide receivers in the 5th, 6th round this year. Even as late as the 7th and 8th round, you can get a guy like Robbie Anderson who just signed that massive extension. So this is the reason why a lot of people are like, you're going to miss out on a great wide receiver by taking Waller. Sure you are, but you can make up for it at the wide receiver position, whereas you can't really make up that same target level at the tight end position.
Right. Well, Waller is a number one. He's basically the number one receiver.
Yeah.
You don't want to say wide receiver, even though he's the tight end. He's the number one receiver on that team. So that's why, I would take him. And then you look at the other receivers that the Raiders have. Ruggs hasn't really proven himself. I do like Bryan Edwards, but he's almost essentially a rookie. You don't know what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
Waller is the one thing that that's there.
All right. Well, let's move on to Will's first person. Will, who is your person you're trying to leave everyone?
Based on what I'm seeing on reports about training camp or preseason, I think for those that are going to want to go heavy with running back and wide receiver, and then hope who falls later in the draft for quarterback, I tell you, I'm going all in on Ben Roethlisberger this year. I mean, his average draft position is 137. Okay, so 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th round. That allows me to concentrate on running backs, wide receivers that I want and get, and still get a quarterback who I think is going to give me 3 touchdowns a game. Throwing, right? Maybe 1 running every once in a while. But, right now, as I'm going into my drafts, Roethlisberger's my guy. I just think he's going to put up great numbers this year because I think he also understands this is last year with the Steelers, and he's auditioning for next year. And I don't think he's done. I think he may be done with the Steelers, but I think he gets one more contract with another team. And it's a chance to show that he's still valuable.
I think he'll be done after this season. I can't see him playing for a team that's not the Steelers. But if he wants to play for another team, he's definitely got to show out this year. There's no reason he shouldn't. They should have a better running game with Najee there. They have 3 really good wide receivers and a good defense. So if he wants to play again next year, which I'm not sure if he does, I think this could be it for him. Obviously, he's gotten into shape more than he ever has. He's focused on his diet. So does that mean he thinks he can play another year?
I think he can. Looking at him, albeit it is the preseason, albeit it was the Detroit Lions, he looked great. He looked great. And that's the one thing about the Steelers. They've got weapons around him to where he knows the system. I would rather depend on Ben, even over a lot of other quarterbacks that are out there. I mean, we're looking at some of these guys like, Ben versus Jared Goff. I would definitely, if I'm a GM, I would rather go ahead and stick with Ben, especially if I can see that his arm strength is back. And that's what it looked like. He threw one of those, he threw it on a line to Pat Fryermuth, who actually I think is going to be a sleeper this year as well. That dude around the red zone is going to be money. But he looked stronger than I've seen him in the last 4 years, even before the injury, man. He looks like he is back to really prove his worth, and prove that he can still play. And I think Tom Brady has pushed a lot of these older guys to doing that, to like, hey, I can still play, and I'm going to go ahead and get out of here on my own terms. I'm not going to let you guys push us out. But yeah, I mean, he looked great, and that's been my strategy. I've been in a super flex league. I waited for Ben, and it was like everybody else was taken, and he was just sitting there. And I went ahead and grabbed him with that plan. He did decently last year. It wasn't his greatest year, but it wasn't bad. And he's coming off an elbow surgery, So, I'm looking for him to actually do some really good things this year.
All right.
Hey, Zach, I'm going to jump in real quick. So, Ben at 137. Watson's going at 127. Trey Lance is going at 127. Derek Carr is going at 126. Cousins at 122. Trevor Lawrence at 109. Joe Burrow at 105. Yeah, I would probably take my third wide receiver before I took any of those guys before Ben Roethlisberger, to be honest.
Yeah, I would too. Sticking with the Steelers, Jeff, let's lead into your next guy.
Sticking with the Steelers, man, a guy that is going to be a solid third down back, and this guy can catch. This dude may stay in there all 4 downs. You don't know. Najee Harris. Well, if this guy is able to stay healthy, he's showing these things as well, man. I know he was durable at Alabama. He can catch. He can run. I think he's going to be the real deal. So at the end of that first round, if you're picking on that back end, especially if it's a snake, man, you can grab whoever is the top back left over, then bottle them up with Harris, or take Harris and then get somebody else after. I think this dude, I would be willing to take him at the end of the first round, definitely first pick in the second round. And I think he's going to be a guy that I like. I like volume. He's going to get volume of carries, and he's also going to get some passes out of the backfield, man. I'm looking at the best of both worlds right there.
And one thing that people knock on him for has nothing to do with his talent. It has to do with how well this offensive line is going to play this year. The Steelers did rebuild. Did they make better? Did they make it worse? We're going to have to see. But obviously, as you said, Najee Harris is going to be a 3-down back for the Steelers. And when he sees those targets, which are valuable in any sort of PPR league, he's going to be one of those guys where I would probably take him, as you said, at the end of the first or beginning of the second and go running back, pairing Najee with an Austin Eckler or Nick Chubb. Any pairing like that I really like.
Yeah, man, I paired him with, and I couldn't believe it, I paired him with Derrick Henry. And I'm like, I got 2 guys, man. Derrick Henry may not get the passing. He may not get the receptions, but I know he's going to get carries. And now I got another guy that's going to get carries and also going to get receptions. And this is just a half-point PBR, so I wasn't really worried, too much about the receptions. But I'm like, I got 2 guys that may not leave the field that much that are going to assure me I'm going to have value on both of those positions.
Yeah, and I like taking 2 running backs to start, especially this year with the value I can get in wide receivers later. I feel like the running backs kind of drop off after the second round being Clyde Edwards-Helaire. After that, I feel like kind of drop off a little bit. You get into the Josh Jacobs, those type of running backs. So if you can get 2 wide receivers to start your draft, follow them up with a Darren Waller, as I said, in the 3rd round. And then you can take one of my guys that I like to have, a must-have later in draft, Brandon Cooks. He's currently being drafted wide receiver 38. He's by far the wide receiver 1 on the Texans. Who's going to start at quarterback? I don't really think it matters because no matter who it is, he's going to see the targets. And with those targets come receptions. I think people forget how good Brandon Cooks is. He's been traded multiple times, but he's been traded for good value, being 1st-round picks, 2nd-round picks, and so on. I think the Texans believe in him. They did trade – well, this wasn't the current regime, but they traded away DeAndre Hopkins and traded for Brandon Cooks to kind of come in and fill that role. So 5 out of his 7 years, he's finished as a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. He's had better quarterbacks in the past than he currently does, but he's never been on a team in the position that he is right now, where he is by far the best weapon in that offense, whether it's a running back, tight end, anything. He's going to be the best player on the field. And I think that's something that's huge for him. The team is also terrible. The defense sucks. So that's going to lead for the Texans to have to throw the ball more, which I know that the Texans are terrible. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people are like, I don't want Brandon Cooks on my team. I took Brandon Cooks in my money league this year, and I was quite happy with it because they're going to be throwing the ball so much. They're not going to have the opportunity to establish the run. They're not going to be winning games. They're not going to be up by 17 and just running the clock out in any game, no matter who they're playing. They're going to be throwing at the end of every game. And even if it's garbage time points, they're still points that are going to win you your fantasy week.
That's what's so funny. You said the best option. I'm like, he's the only option. I'm like, you got Chris Conley, Nico Collins, who they drafted from Michigan that actually sat out the last year. I'm just like, dude, he is Mark Ingram. Who knows what he has left in the tank? Philip Lindsay. I'm like, it's David Johnson, who I think is, man.
He's probably the 2nd best receiver on that team.
Yeah. I'm just like, I'm just like, he is the only option that I see in that offense right now. So, other than, if it is Tyrod Taylor that's starting at quarterback, maybe he's running it in if they happen to get into the red zone or if they get within the 5-yard line, which I don't see happening.
But even that's not where Cooks makes his bread per se. Exactly. He makes it by after the catch, beating people deep. So even if Tyrod's starting and he gets some goal line touchdowns, I don't feel like that negates from Brandon Cooks as much as it negates from the running backs and the tight ends in that situation and the other wide receivers on the Texans. He's currently being ADP of 90, so that's going to be the end of the 9th round. And I think at that point you're drafting your wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, depending on how you play your team. And I don't think there's better value at that position than Brandon Cooks. Let's jump into your second player here, Will.
Oh, hey, so if you're at the top of your draft, and I don't know about y'all, but I hate being in the snake draft. I hate being in the top 3 or 4 because I hate watching a lot of good talent go off at 9 through 15. That I would honestly, I'd rather have 2 of those. But if I'm in the top 3 or top 4 of my draft, it's Dalvin Cook. I just think if you look at the NFC North, you look at the Vikings, you look at the pressure the Vikings are under to win this year, I think they're going to feed Dalvin until he either gets hurt or the wheels come off the bus. I don't know. But Dalvin's going to get a lot of touches of rushing the ball, and he's going to get a lot of check down passes. I think deliberate check down passes from Kirk Cousins. The Viking offensive line has gotten better. Looking at their grades so far through the preseason, they're still doing really well in rushing, and Dalvin hasn't played yet. So if I'm in the top 3 or 5, and I'm thinking, who do I want in a team that I know is going to kill their running back? They're going to run him into the ground. It's Dalvin.
And that's funny that you say that because I'm like, if you're in the 3rd position, is he going to get to you? Earlier in the year, he wasn't, which was shocking. People were actually taking Saquon Barkley ahead of him. And I was just like, whoa, you don't even know what you got in this guy yet. And you're taking an injured player. I mean, can be a generational talent, but I'm like, so is Dalvin Cook, which he's proven over the last couple of years with his health being good. So it was just, I'm like, hell.
Jeff, I think in some way for if you're a fantasy owner and you end up with a third through fifth pick, I think you should be happy that the Vikings haven't done anything in preseason and they haven't played him. Because we all know what happens, right? We really shouldn't overread preseason, but we do. And I think people are going to look at the Vikings and they're going to be like, oh my God, they lost 30 to something to Denver. They lost 12 to 13 to 10, 12 to 9, whatever it was against Indianapolis. And I think people start devaluing certain players. So right now, I know Dalvin's average draft position is 2. But I think as people go into the draft next 2 weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if Dalvin Cook's draft position drops to 4 or 5. But I think people are just hesitant about what is Kirk Cousins? What are the Vikings? Are they really – Zimmer, I know he likes to run the ball, but are they really going to commit to that? And so I don't blame people. If you're sitting there looking at Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook on the board and you don't pick again until 18, 19, 20, you think this pick has to count and it has to get me a big chunk of my points every week. And honestly, I may be tempted if I had the second pick to take Derrick Henry, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. Right.
See, if I have the second pick, I'm taking Cook every time. I feel like the passing game separates him from Henry. And what separates him from Cook is – or not from Cook. What separates him from Kamara is what that offense is going to be. So I am taking Cook at a lock at number 2. And if CMC doesn't go number 1, I would take him.
Yeah.
Cook. But other than that, Cook is my running back 2. I feel like CMC is in his own tier and probably Dalvin Cook's in his own tier as well. And then Henry and Kamara, I feel like are interchangeable at 3 and 4. But Jeff, let's get into your second guy you must have in every fantasy football draft.
Well, it's funny. It's like Will was saying with the Vikings. My team, the Seattle Seahawks, is kind of doing the same thing where their starters aren't going out there. And I think a lot of people are down on Russell Wilson this year. I'm seeing a lot of other quarterbacks go before him. Justin Herbert, people are kind of down on him thinking that, Chris Carson's back, they're going to run a lot. I think they are going to surprise people and throw the ball. I think they're going to let Russ cook. The one thing I love about Russ, even though there's line questions, Russ is always available. The best ability is availability. And I'm hoping he stays available for the whole season like he has. But I think, Russell has something to prove this year, and I think he's going to do it, and I think they've got a well-balanced attack. I think his legs are still good. I think he's still going to be moving a lot out of the pocket. He's not as fast as Kyler Murray, but he's elusive. So I think he learned from last year that he can't just sit back there and dance around. I think if that line doesn't prove to hold, instead of sitting back there waiting for DK to get open, he's going to take off and at least get 2 to 3 to 5 yards. So if you are looking at a guy that is just going to constantly get you yards with his legs or by throwing, and is one of the smartest quarterbacks out there, it's going to be Russell Wilson, especially if I can get him, later in the later rounds, around a 6th or 7th round pick.
Yeah, I feel like he's being drafted behind Justin Herbert right now, who I'd take Wilson over for sure. And I don't think we can talk about Russell Wilson without bringing up your next must-have. So we'll let you talk about that as well while we're on the topic of the Seahawks.
My next must-have, I think this dude is going to grow to another level. I call him Megatron 2.0, and that's my guy DK Metcalf. He is a matchup nightmare. Nobody's as big as him. Nobody's as fast as him. I think he's going to be set to prove Jalen Ramsey wrong this year. I think he's going to go at him when they play the Rams. This dude is a freak of nature, man. Only thing I could ask for is his hands just being a little bit better. But other than that, I know Russ is going to target him because Russ is going to be able to throw that ball up there, and that dude is going to go up and get it. He is a freak of nature. I think he actually got a little bit bigger, a little bit leaner, and it translates into a little bit faster. This dude, that's just it. He's a matchup nightmare. If it's a long, a lengthy throw that Russell does, or if it's around the red zone, he's going to be looking for DK first and foremost. I love Tyler Lockett. That's our underneath guy. But when Russ is looking to make a big play, he's got a big target to go. And DK is that dude I'm looking to grab.
I think DK
I'd say my first or second wide receiver off the board for me.
Yeah. DK and Tyler are a perfect pair. DK is the freak of nature. He's huge. He's fast. And Tyler Lockett's the nifty guy. Great with his feet. When you need a first down, Tyler Lockett's going to be there. When you need to get open in the end zone, Tyler Lockett's going to be there. When Russell Wilson's scrambling around, Tyler Lockett's going to be there. But when the Seahawks need that big play, DK Metcalf's going to be the guy that brings it for him this year.
Yeah.
And obviously,
I'm with y'all on that. I think DK's 140 receptions.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you can make the argument he should be the first wide receiver off the board. It's how dominant he is, and he's going to be third year. He understands the game now. He knows who he's going against, and he's proven he's a student of the game. You pair that with a quarterback and a wide receiver combination of Russell Wilson, who's also smart and understands the game. We all want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. No. Give me Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf this year. That is the money I will bet every week, because that is a hell of a combination.
That's it.
All right, let's get into your third player here, Will. Who is your third must-have?
So I'm looking down the draft board, and I'm thinking, who can I get later in the draft that can make my team? And the guy that sticks out to me right now, and it's, I know some people think it's a risk. I'm going to say it's Odell. Odell Beckham's going at 87, roughly in the draft, 88 right now. And I look at some of the guys around him as far as value and upside. Depending on how my draft board falls, and if there's a run on the wide receivers in second round, third round, and Odell's sitting there, I'm taking Odell. I think that's, it's the mid and late round draft picks that win the season for you. Who were those? So for me last year was Justin Jefferson. It just carried me over in a lot of leagues at the end. I think Odell's that guy this year. I think he's purpose. He has a purpose. He's driven. I think he's going to put up good numbers. And I think if you have him as your second or third wide receiver, and at 87, he's probably the third wide receiver, truth be told, for a lot of teams. Yeah, I'm going with Odell Beckham this year. I just think Cleveland year 2 in that offense, Odell's had a good camp. That's just my gut right now, is I'm going with Odell Beckham later in the draft.
Yeah, and he is still the number one on his team, just like what I said for Brandon Cooks applies to Odell.
Yeah.
He's got all the talent, other than Jarvis Landry there, who will take some targets away. But Odell's still a big play guy. And if he can stay healthy this year, which everything coming out of camp says he's going to be 100%, I think he'd have a big year. He's a guy who I've been targeting. There's a couple guys I like a little more than Odell, but people are over-hating on Odell, as we said last week, and they forget how good of a player he actually is.
I mean, there's no way that Galladay or Shark, whatever, how do you say that, is going, honestly, come on, y'all. You're picking wide receivers from Jacksonville and the Giants over Odell Beckham. You've got to be freaking kidding me.
And Juju's going over them, too.
Cleveland's
Bengals wide receivers.
Right. There's a disconnect in fantasy, right? Everybody wants to hate Odell. Okay, you can hate him, but to think that the talent isn't at the level, even if you want to say, well, look at the quarterback. Really, we're going to say the Giants in Jacksonville's quarterback situation is way more settled than Cleveland's. This is where people are going too far. They're letting their emotions get caught up with them about who they should draft based on who's available on the board.
Right.
Yeah, I think the only time emotions come into play in fantasy football is if there's a guy from your team you really want to cheer for.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't let your emotions of which players you don't like come into play.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's guys you love, it makes it more fun to be able to have them. But if you
Yeah.
want to win, you shouldn't let a guy like Odell Beckham, who you may not be
Mhm.
fond of, ruin your chance of winning a fantasy championship this year. And let's get right into my third guy I must have. I just want to say in my league, I came out with all three of these guys, my big money league. So this third guy is a wide receiver 2 on his team. New wide receiver 2 was a wide receiver 3 last year with their number 1 target leaving. I have Russell Gage, currently being drafted as a wide receiver 56. I think that's a low end wide receiver 2 if there's 32 teams, and I think he's got to be a high wide receiver 2 because the Falcons have a terrible defense, as I said, with the Texans. That's really a thing you got to look for with these late round wide receivers is which teams are going to be throwing the ball a lot. Matt Ryan loves to throw the ball. They don't really have a super strong running game. They have Mike Davis, but outside of that, question marks. And any offense with Matt Ryan has previously shown that they're going to throw the ball a lot. Calvin Ridley is going to be the number 1. Kyle Pitts will probably be the number 2 option on the team, and then Russell Gage will be there. He had 13 points in, I think it was 4 of his last 5 games last season when Julio wasn't playing. And he's the clear-cut number 2 on that team. He's got the rapport with Matt Ryan already. I think people are just kind of sleeping on him because he doesn't have a big name, like an Odell Beckham Jr., where people still talking about him. Russell Gage, some people who play fantasy football have probably never even heard of him. And I think that's really what he's not a household name. But if he was, he would be going a lot higher in drafts this year, I feel.
Yeah, I've actually had him on my roster the last 2 years, and now what guys don't understand, the one reason I actually had somebody send me a trade, CeeDee Lamb for Calvin Ridley. One reason I didn't take it is because I really don't trust Ridley to stay healthy, especially now being that number 1 option. He has missed a lot of games in his career, and I can see that happening this year. And so if that happens, who is Matt Ryan going to depend on? Is he going to depend on a guy that's been there for the last couple of years? Or is he going to depend on a rookie that's a tight end and you may not know what you're going to get? So I can see going with Russell Gage. And, he's one of those good security blanket type guys. And if coverage is rolling that way towards Calvin Ridley, that's the one thing I used to love about him as a 3. He was getting a lot of looks. So I'm like, now as a 2, what coverage is rolling Ridley's way, and even if defensive coordinators are starting to look at Pitts, this dude, man, he could wreak havoc. So, yeah, I'm not mad at that at all, Zach. That's a good guy to take.
Zach, my only concern about that is Atlanta seems like a tank team if there was ever a tank team. That they're just like, hey, we are who we are. We're not trying to win. We're trying to set ourselves up for a rebuild. And my only fear about that is the stability at the quarterback position. And I think that's great if Ryan's healthy the whole year and he plays the whole year. Honestly, if New England really gets ugly at quarterback and Atlanta was struggling at the start of the year, would not a Matt Ryan to New England trade make sense? I mean,
no.
I know. Hey, look, Jeff, I know you love Cam, but this week,
no. It's not even about Cam right now.
They have Mac Jones. They don't
Cam to Atlanta because I'm not trading. I would put Matt Ryan out there on one leg when I'm looking at my backups. My backups are Josh Rosen and Blake Bortles.
But if your ownership's okay with that being 2-15 and getting the first pick, because I think ownership is there. If you're not doing well and someone made an offer for Matt Ryan, are you going to say no? I think the
ownership's there.
Look, they trade Julio Jones. No one's untouchable.
And
that tells me everything.
That's a good point, but I don't think they're going to do that. I don't know.
They're going to be losing games by a lot anyway, so they're going to be throwing the ball late because they're still going to want to win. I don't think
but
any team that goes out there
if we agree,
loses other than the Philadelphia Eagles, who were disgraced football last season.
but if we
other
agree
than that,
that
you don't see teams just go out and try and lose, which is why I think they'll be losing games, but they'll be trying to win and throwing the ball to Russell Gage and Calvin really late.
I just think if you're going to move Matt Ryan, now's the year to do him.
Yeah, I can't see them parting ways. I think Matt Ryan would retire before, because he's been with the Falcons his entire career. He's getting up there in age. But I think it's the same situation the way I see Ben Roethlisberger. I can't see Ben Roethlisberger playing for a team that's not the Steelers because of everything they've built there, and I feel the same about Matt Ryan, even though they didn't quite win the Super Bowl. But we got to move on to the social media post of the week. We're going to stay within the NFC South. We're going to go to Panthers camp here. The Panthers had some interesting things going on. Right? One of their assistant coaches. They were doing a couple races, the assistant coaches. They had Joe Brady and Phil Snow as the OC and the DC. They were doing a push-up competition. The Panthers were just having fun out there today. And I think that's something that we need to see more often. So you can see all the players there. They're all huddled around the race. And I just think it's something that's fun to see. You know, these guys, they like to enjoy themselves as well. And it's something that can help people connect with the players and the coaches because that's them doing things that everyone else would like to do as well. And I think that's huge. It's something more teams should do.
Yeah. Panthers seem like a fun squad this year, don't they? Like there's no pressure on them.
You're kind of reminding me of 2015 Panthers a little bit.
Yeah.
Quarterback situation is different, but that team was having fun while they played, and I think that's what made them so good. And that's why when they got behind in the Super Bowl, the pressure was on them. They're 15-1, and they stopped enjoying what they were doing. But throughout the season, Cam was having fun, and I think that's something that Matt Rule's trying to bring into Carolina again is to have that atmosphere where the players want to play, and the players are going to enjoy doing it, playing for him, playing for Joe Brady, Phil Snow. And I think the Panthers have built that atmosphere where they can surprise some people this year.
Well, honestly, that's one of the one teams that I think if anything happens to their quarterback, they are actually set up to still do well, man. I absolutely love P.J. Walker, man. I think that dude could start. I want Sam Darnold to succeed, but you guys are set this year. Much better position than you were last year with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Sam Darnold, I fully believe Sam Darnold can be the quarterback for us. But as you said, P.J. Walker did have a good first game in the preseason. His second game in the preseason, he kind of looked iffy because he was playing with the third string, which didn't help. So if Sam Darnold does get hurt for whatever reason, I feel like P.J. Walker can step in. He did play a little bit last year. He didn't look great, but he didn't look terrible. But I think Sam Darnold can lead this team to the playoffs.
Yeah. So anybody taking real quick, Zach? Anybody taking Sam Darnold in the drafts?
No, I wouldn't take Sam Darnold in your drafts right now, just because Christian McCaffrey is going to be the offense is going to run through him still, and I think the Panthers' defense can surprise some people that they won't have to put up 30 points to win some games. So maybe later on in the season as a streaming option, if he's playing the Texans or the Lions or a team like that, maybe even the Falcons, you could look to stream him, but he's not a guy I'd be targeting in drafts. But I want to thank you guys for joining the show again today. I want to thank everyone who tuned in, everyone who listened. I hope you guys enjoyed the beer segment, the must-have segment, and I hope you guys come back for next week's episode. We're also going to have a mock draft special that we're going to be releasing. So make sure you guys pay attention and stay tuned for that. Thank you.